We review a lot of phones, but this Oppo A6 Pro shocked us in a number of ways. There's nothing remarkable about its spec sheet, the highlight being a 6500 mAh battery and 80 watts of wired charging, but there's parts of this phone that are truly game-changing. Let's show you. First of all, let's talk about the unboxing experience of the A6 Pro, because here it's a pretty basic affair. You get the manuals, SIM ejector pin, charging cable, and then the A6 Pro itself. And it's in this lunar titanium, essentially silver finish, and then the phone is built entirely of plastic. But when you have it in hand, it doesn't feel that way, and it doesn't feel cheap at any point. A few things to note here, and that is linked to the durability of the A6 Pro, and it actually has military grade drop protection from up to 2.5 meters, which means if you drop this reasonably, you shouldn't expect the display to crack, which is pretty sick. But then it also gets you IP68 and IP69K dust and water resistance, which means if this phone is wet, you can continue to use it. But even more so than that, if you were to drop this in boiling hot water, it'll actually still work absolutely fine and won't suffer any damage at all. One of the main allures of this phone is what we mentioned at the start of this video, is its massive 6500 mAh battery with a recharging speeds of 80 watts. But how does it perform in real world terms? Well, with the battery at around 50%, you're getting over 15 hours of usage time before you need to recharge it, which is literally, for most people on average screen time wise, at least 2 days, if not 3 days. So this battery on this phone is completely legit and is exactly what we achieved when we hit the lower teens. We then recharged it and I've been using it since, and it's worked very, very well. So this 6500 mAh battery for the most common people in this particular budget category is likely to last them 3, maybe even 4 days, depending on their usage. You truly see the benefits of this massive battery when you're doing other things which I would consider a bit more demanding, and then you hammer the phone. Things like gaming. Now, you're not going to be able to play the high-end performing games, but casual games like Temple Run really, really well here. And then if you wanted to push this a bit more and play slightly more demanding games, things like Shadow of Death 2, again, run really, really well. And if you're playing significant games on both of those and spending time on them, you're not going to see a huge significant drop when it comes to battery life, which is a huge allure of that 6500 mAh battery. On the performance front though, the A6 Pro is powered by the Dimensity 6300 chipset. So you're not going to be able to, as we mentioned, play flagship level games at 120 frames per second. But what you can do is game on casual games, and they run really, really well. The CPU itself, when you put into testing on Geekbench, does reflect single and multi-core scores of an entry-level chipset. But overall, I would say it does a really, really good job. We've experienced no issues at all when using this phone. Then the cameras of the A6 Pro. It's a pretty basic setup. You get a 50 megapixel main and then an auxiliary lens, which shockingly does deliver some pretty nice images when in the right lighting conditions. During daylight, you find that the colors are nicely balanced with a good amount of detail, and sharpness is also pretty good here. It does capture a nice aesthetic, natural look as well, and personally, really, really like the output. Nighttime photos though are a bit more challenging, with brighter lit areas such as signs, for example, creating an almost halo-like effect and reducing separation and detail. Video is 1080p 60 fps, which is absolutely fine and somewhat serviceable, producing an overall usable video with decent colors and vibrancy. The front cameras are not great. A lot of issues here around sharpness, and there is a distinct lack of detail and clarity, and that's also reflective in video as well. It doesn't have that same level of detail and clarity. The A6 Pro's cameras as a whole though, speaking predominantly about that main 50 megapixel sensor, if you stick just to that, it's actually not that bad at all. So the A6 Pro runs Android 15 and Color OS 15 out of box with 2 OS updates promised and 3 years of security updates promised, which is significantly less than, I would say, the Poco M8 5G, which is a very similar price point to this phone. But when you're using the OS, it runs incredibly well. If you're opening and closing folders, it's extremely smooth, and using multiple windows again at the same time works very, very well. In fact, perfectly. You even get features like being able to use floating windows whilst you're browsing the web. You could be watching a YouTube video or listening to one in the top or left hand corner. Those features, weirdly, I've seen on flagships, and now they're all the way at the bottom here, which is awesome to see that there's a reduction in that. But there are downsides to a phone this cheap, and that comes in the form of bloatware and pre-installed apps, 31 of those to be exact, which you've popped into a folder to serve here. However, they don't prompt you with a lot of ads, and a lot of those apps are deletable as well, which is pretty good. It's a shame that they're on there in the starting point. Overall though, the OS experience is incredibly smooth and very, very well optimized for this CPU. And all of that, in terms of its OS's performance, is backed up by a 6.57 inch, 120Hz AMOLED display with 1400 nits of peak brightness, with an 88% screen to body ratio, meaning you get pretty thin bezels all around, and the quality of the display is excellent with nice balanced colors, and brightness may not be the brightest, but it still looks really good for watching content or just doing what you want to do with your phone. And then the output in terms of audio may not be punchy and rich in detail, but it's still pretty good. So the A6 Pro is a really good budget phone for around £249, because there's only really one really standout feature, I'd say, and that's that 6500 milliamp hour battery with the 80 watts of wired charging. But the other components of this phone are also pretty good as well for the price, like the display, like the OS. All of that runs really, really well, and then you still benefit from a really nice balanced 6.59 inch, pretty decent and vibrant display as well. So this phone is ideal for those who are looking for a no-frills phone that does the job, but most importantly, will not need recharging every day. In fact, this phone will need recharging probably for most people 2 to 3 days, which is pretty sick. We want you to let us know your thoughts on this budget phone, Oppo A6 Pro, in the comment section below, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next one, as always, we out.